In 1982, physicist Alain Aspect at the Institute of Optics of the University of Paris proved what Albert Einstein called impossible: that two particles, separated by any distance, instantaneously know each other's state. This phenomenon, quantum entanglement, was so shocking that physics textbooks were rewritten for 12 years in an attempt to comprehend its implications. Michael Talbot, David Bohm, Carl Pribram, Berkeley, Stanford, 5 sources of a single revolution that began in the 70s of the last century, and which modern physics is still afraid to utter aloud, because it upends our very concept of reality. Over the next hour, you will learn 3 things. First, why your brain works like a hologram. Second, what Einstein, Hermes Trismegistus, and the Buddha have in common. And third, you will receive a practical protocol of 3 techniques that will change the way you perceive and shape your reality. But first, why Michael Talbot, who wrote this book, died at 39 of leukemia just 1 year after its publication. Michael Talbot was no mystic. He was a journalist, a meticulous researcher whose pen served as a beacon in the dark waters of the scientific mainstream. Born in 1953, he dedicated himself to the study of the strangest and most inexplicable phenomena that science preferred to ignore or dismiss. His path was that of a man who could not accept the limitations of accepted paradigms, sensing that behind the veil of the visible lay something far deeper and more grandiose. He sought answers where others saw only superstition or pseudoscience. His early works were dedicated to paranormal phenomena, extrasensory perception, and altered states of consciousness. Talbot did not merely describe these phenomena, he attempted to find a scientific explanation for them, utilizing the most advanced ideas in physics and neurobiology. It was this quest for synthesis, for reconciling seemingly irreconcilable domains, that led him to David Bohm and Carl Pribram. These encounters became a turning point in his life and gave birth to his most famous work, The Holographic Universe. This book, published in 1991, became the culmination of his research, his attempt to unite scattered fragments of knowledge into a single, comprehensive picture. He synthesized ideas that before him existed only within separate scientific disciplines, and presented to the world a concept that could explain everything, from quantum entanglement to the phenomena of consciousness. Yet Talbot's path was not solely intellectual, it was also deeply personal. He lost his health studying what physics could not explain, and ended his life as a man who reconciled science and ancient knowledge. His death in 1992 of leukemia, at the age of only 39, 1 year after the release of his magnum opus, left behind many questions. Was it a tragic coincidence? Or did intense immersion into such borderline knowledge, which challenges established reality, carry its own price, draining his physical strength? We can only guess, but his legacy lives on, continuing to inspire millions of people across the world. David Bohm, born in 1917, was one of the most distinguished physicists of his time, a student of Albert Einstein himself. His career was marked not only by brilliant insights into quantum mechanics, but also by dramatic turns, including persecution during the McCarthy era. His refusal to testify against his colleagues forced him to leave the United States, continuing his work in Brazil and later in Great Britain. This forced isolation, perhaps, granted him freedom of thought, allowing him to develop the revolutionary concept of the implicate and explicate orders. Bohm asserted that the reality we see, the explicate order, is but a surface projection of a far deeper, invisible and indivisible implicate order. The universe, in his view, does not consist of separate parts, but is a unified holographic whole, wherein every point contains information about the entire system. Carl Pribram, born in 1919, was a pioneer of neurosurgery and neurobiology at Stanford, one of the greatest thinkers in the field of brain study. He confronted a fundamental mystery: how does the brain store memories? Experiments begun as early as the 20s of the last century by Carl Lashley showed that removing various parts of the brain in rats did not lead to the loss of specific memories, but merely rendered them less clear. This contradicted the traditional idea of memory localization. Pribram proposed a radical solution. The brain operates like a hologram. Memories are not stored in specific neurons or areas, but are distributed throughout the entire system, much like how every fragment of a hologram contains information about the entire image. And here begins the true mystery, which Michael Talbot unraveled. He saw that Bohm's ideas of a holographic universe and Prebrum's ideas of a holographic brain are not merely parallel, they are two sides of the same coin. If the universe is a giant hologram and our brain is also a hologram, then it means our brain does not merely perceive reality. It interprets and, in a certain sense, projects it. We are not merely observers in an external world. We are active participants in its creation, or more precisely, in its manifestation from the implicate order. This is not merely a philosophical concept. This is an operating instruction for consciousness. Imagine that you are in a cinema. You see moving images on the screen, hear sounds, experience emotions. You are fully immersed in the film, but you know that this is merely a projection created by a beam of light passing through film. Talbot's holographic model invites us to look at our reality in a similar way. What we perceive as a solid, independent world around us, with its objects, events, and people, is but a projection unfolded from an invisible, deeper level of reality, Bohm's implicate order. At this invisible level, all things are interconnected and are part of an indivisible whole. There is no separation between self and other, between here and there. Everything exists in potential as an infinite number of interference patterns ready to be manifested. Our brain, according to Pribram, acts as a decoder, as a holographic projector that receives these interference patterns and transforms them into the three-dimensional reality we experience. It does not create reality out of nothing, but selects and focuses specific aspects from the infinite potential of the implicate order. Why is this so important? Because it changes the fundamental understanding of our role in the universe. We are no longer passive observers, accidentally cast into a mechanistic world. We are an integral part of the process of creation, co-creators of our reality. Your consciousness, your thoughts, your emotions, these are not merely internal experiences. They are active beams that shape and project your personal version of the hologram. The historical roots of this idea go deep into the quantum physics of the early 20th century. When Max Planck, Werner Heisenberg, and Erwin Schrödinger began to explore the world of elementary particles, they encountered phenomena that challenged all of classical physics. Particles behaved like waves and vice versa. Observation influenced the outcome of the experiment. Albert Einstein, despite his genius, could not reconcile himself to such strangeness until the end of his life. He called quantum entanglement spooky action at a distance because it implied an instantaneous connection between particles separated by vast distances, which seemed to violate the principle of locality and the speed of light. But David Bohm proposed an elegant solution to this spooky problem. He asserted that particles do not exchange information across space-time. They were never separated in the first place. Their apparent separation is an illusion, like two fish swimming in different aquariums, which are actually parts of one large aquarium separated only by glass. Or, better yet, imagine a fish tank being filmed by two cameras from different angles. On two monitors you see two different fish, but in reality it is the same fish. Quantum entanglement, according to Bohm, is direct proof of the existence of the implicate order, where everything is one. Particles know each other's state not because they exchange signals, but because they are manifestations of the very same indivisible whole. This is a fundamental shift. The universe ceases to be a collection of separate, interacting parts and becomes a single dynamic living organism in which every point contains information about everything. And if this is so, what does it mean for our consciousness? Karl Pribram, as we have already said, applied this idea to the brain. He showed that the brain does not merely process information coming from the outside. It is an active participant in shaping our perception of reality. Imagine that you are looking at a tree. Traditional science says that light from the tree enters your eyes, is converted into electrical signals, which are then processed in the visual cortex of the brain, creating the image of the tree. But Pribram and Talbot assert that this is only part of the story. The brain does not merely receive the image of the tree. It constructs it, utilizing information from the implicate order. This explains many mysterious phenomena. For instance, phantom pains in amputated limbs. A person loses an arm but continues to feel pain or itching in it because the holographic map of the arm still exists in their brain, projecting the sensation, or the phenomenon of extrasensory perception when people know things they could not have learned through ordinary sensory channels. If everything is connected in the implicate order, then access to this information becomes possible if our brain is capable of tuning into it. But next comes the strangest part. If our brain is a holographic projector and reality is a hologram, then our internal states, our thoughts and emotions have a direct, measurable ability to influence this projection. This is not magic. It is neuroplasticity and epigenetics, as demonstrated by the works of Norman Doidge in the 2000s and Bruce Lipton. Our brain is constantly changing, rewiring itself under the influence of our thoughts and experiences. And our genes, as it turns out, are not an unalterable sentence. Their expression, that is, how they manifest, can be modified by the environment and most strikingly by our beliefs and perception. Thus, Talbot's holographic model provides us not merely with a new theory, but with a practical tool. If you wish to change your reality, you must change your internal projection. This is not merely positive thinking, it is far deeper. It is the understanding that your consciousness is part of a universal projector, and you can consciously influence what manifests from the implicate order. The first key technique that flows from this understanding is holographic visualization. You may be familiar with the concept of creative visualization, popularized by Shakti Gawain in her book Creative Visualization in 1978. Usually, this boils down to imagining your desire as a picture in your head, seeing it clearly, believing in it. But Talbot, drawing upon the holographic model, offers a far more powerful approach. The essence of holographic visualization lies not in visualizing a desire as a picture in the head, but in feeling it as an already existing part of the hologram. This is a fundamental difference. You do not merely imagine a future event. You experience it in the present, as if it has already occurred, as if it is already a part of your current reality. You immerse yourself in this feeling, allowing it to permeate every cell of your being. This is not merely a mental exercise. It is the full engagement of all your senses, emotions, and bodily sensations. Why is this so effective? Because it changes your neural networks. Your brain, being a holographic projector, does not distinguish a vividly imagined and deeply felt internal experience from a real external event. When you feel the desired outcome as already existing, your brain begins to create new neural connections that correspond to this new reality. It begins to operate as if this reality is already manifested. This is the very same mechanism that underlies the placebo effect, where the belief in healing triggers real physiological changes in the body. Your brain, your internal hologram, begins to emit patterns corresponding to the desired state, and these patterns begin to interact with the implicate order, attracting corresponding events and circumstances into your explicate reality. A striking example of this is the experiment conducted with the East German Olympic team in the period from 1968 to 1988. The athletes were divided into groups. One group spent 100% of their time on physical training, another spent 75% of their time on mental training, that is, on intensive visualization and feeling themselves as winners, and 25% on physical preparation. The results were astounding. The athletes who dedicated most of their time to mental training showed significantly better results than those who trained only physically. They did not merely imagine victory, they lived it in their consciousness, forming new neural pathways that subsequently manifested in their physical achievements. This is not merely a trick for athletes, it is a universal principle. Whether you wish to improve your health, attract new opportunities, enhance relationships, or achieve any other goal, holographic visualization offers you a powerful way to reconfigure your internal projector. You do not merely wait for reality to change, you actively shape it from within, feeling it as already existing, already manifested in the holographic field of consciousness. And here begins the true magic. You begin to see how your internal reality, your deep feeling of the desired outcome, begins to manifest in the external world. This is no coincidence. It is the direct result of you consciously and purposefully tuning your holographic projector. This is not yet the most striking part. This reality is already manifested. This is the very same mechanism that underlies the placebo effect, where the belief in healing triggers real physiological changes in the body. Your brain, your internal hologram, begins to emit patterns corresponding to the desired state, and these patterns begin to interact with the implicate order, attracting corresponding events and circumstances into your explicate reality. A striking example of this is the experiment conducted with the East German Olympic team in the period from 1968 to 1988. The athletes were divided into groups. One group spent 100% of their time on physical training. Another spent 75% of their time on mental training, that is, on intensive visualization and feeling themselves as winners, and 25% on physical preparation. The results were astounding. The athletes who dedicated most of their time to mental training showed significantly better results than those who trained only physically. They did not merely imagine victory, they lived it in their consciousness, forming new neural pathways that subsequently manifested in their physical achievements. This is not merely a trick for athletes, it is a universal principle. Whether you wish to improve your health, attract new opportunities, enhance relationships, or achieve any other goal, holographic visualization offers you a powerful way to reconfigure your internal projector. You do not merely wait for reality to change. You actively shape it from within, feeling it as already existing, already manifested in the holographic field of consciousness. And here begins the true magic. You begin to see how your internal reality, your deep feeling of the desired outcome, begins to manifest in the external world. This is no coincidence. It is the direct result of you consciously and purposefully tuning your holographic projector. This is not yet the most striking part. Neuroplasticity, discovered at the end of the 20th century, provided a scientific foundation for the transformations of which Talbot spoke. Norman Doidge, in his book The Brain That Changes Itself, published in 2007, cited a series of studies demonstrating that the brain is capable of reorganizing itself in response to new habits and mental practices. The most famous experiment, conducted in the year 2000 at the University of London under the direction of Linda Maguire, showed that the so-called London taxi drivers, men who for more than 20 years daily navigated the labyrinth of streets without maps, had a structure in the hippocampus, which is responsible for spatial navigation, that was twice as dense as that of their colleagues, who did not work with maps. This was direct proof that repetitive thought patterns shape physical changes in the brain. Epigenetics, emerging in the early 2000s, reinforces this picture. Bruce Lipton, a biologist and popularizer of the idea that cells respond not only to DNA but also to environmental signals, showed in his 2005 work how beliefs can influence gene expression. A later experiment, conducted by Daniel D. Ressler in 2014, demonstrated that groups of people practicing mindful breathing meditation had reduced methylation of genes responsible for inflammatory processes. Thus, a mental practice that includes holographic visualization is capable of changing the biochemical landscape of the organism. Psychoneuroimmunology, which developed in the late 90s, links emotions, the brain, and immunity. Peter Pert, in his book Molecules of Emotion, published in 1997, presented data showing that emotional state affects the release of neurotransmitters, which in turn regulate the functioning of immune cells. Studies conducted at Stanford University in 2009 showed that participants who practiced the heart-brain coherence technique had an average of 15% increase in the activity of natural killer cells, which are responsible for fighting viruses and tumors. The placebo effect, first systematically described by Henry Beecher in a 1955 work, shows that from 5 to 60% of patients respond to treatment even if it lacks an active substance. Modern neuroimaging studies confirm that when anticipating healing, the same areas of the brain are activated as during the actual intake of medicine. This confirms that the brain can program the body through its own signals, if only we can shape them correctly. These scientific discoveries form the foundation upon which Talbot's holographic model stands. They show that consciousness is not merely an observer, but an active creator of reality, capable of redefining neural networks, the epigenetic code, and the immune response. It is precisely in this that the practical power of the three techniques we will examine next lies. If this topic resonates with you, ring the bell and subscribe. The next episode of this series will reveal what cannot be read in textbooks. And now, the ancients, who knew this long before Stanford and Princeton. Hermetism, which originated in Egypt and Greece in the 13th century BC, already contained the idea that all is mind. The text Corpus Hermeticum, attributed to the mythical Hermes Trismegistus, states, "That which is below is like that which is above, and all that is above is like that which is below." This macroscopic analogy indicates that microscopic structures, including mental ones, are reflected in macroscopic reality. Poemander, an ancient Indian sage in his sutras about 500 years BC, wrote of the mantra as a sound that shapes the fabric of the world. He taught that the repetition of sound creates a vibration capable of changing the form of matter. Both of these sources anticipated the modern idea that informational patterns encoded in consciousness can project themselves into the physical world. In Buddhism, at the very beginning of the Dhammapada, approximately 500 years BC, the first line reads, "All things are what they are not what they are called." This laconic formulation indicates that our conceptual labels are but reflections of a deeper reality. In the teachings of Yogi Vasistha, recorded in 6000 years BC, it speaks of Tanha, the internal breath that connects individual consciousness with the cosmic. The practice of pranayama in this text is described as a way of synchronizing the internal rhythm with the universal field, which precisely corresponds to the modern methodology of heart-brain coherence. Kabbalah, the mystical tradition of the 12th century, introduces the concept of Ein Sof, the infinite light that permeates all existence. In the Sefer Yetzirah, around the 12th century, it is said that the words of the Sephiroth, through the letters of the Hebrew alphabet, create the world. This notion that language and intention shape reality echoes holographic visualization, where the feeling of desire is considered an already existing part of the hologram. The Stoics, such as Epictetus around 150 years AD and Marcus Aurelius 142nd year AD, taught of inner freedom, the ability to accept external events without emotional resistance. Epictetus said, "It is not things that upset us but our judgments about them." This thought anticipated modern neuroscience, which shows that reframing events changes the activity of the prefrontal cortex, reducing the response of the amygdala. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, described the practice of presence, where a person fully immerses themselves in the current moment, which today is called mindful breathing, used in the heart-brain coherence technique. In China, during the Qing era, around 500 years BC, the Buddhist monk Bodhidharma, considered the founder of Zen, taught that emptiness is not absence, but potential. He emphasized that true understanding comes through direct experience, rather than through conceptual thinking. This idea resonates with the holographic model, where reality is perceived as a projection of consciousness, rather than as a fixed object. These ancient teachings, despite the differences in their cultural contexts, converge on a single thought: consciousness is capable of shaping matter, and internal perception is an active process of creation, not of passive observation. Their practices, mantras, breath, meditation, visualization, represent the prototypes of the modern techniques of which we speak. But the real proof came from the most unexpected place, from a laboratory that considered this thought heresy. Earl Nightingale, an American radio host, recorded the program The Strangest Secret in 1950, in which he said, "You become what you think about." This phrase became a manifesto for thousands of people striving to change their lives through changing their thoughts. Nightingale conducted a series of experiments in the late 90s, where participants who wrote down their goals and daily imagined them as already achieved showed an average income growth of 30% over a year and a half, while the control group remained at their previous level. Napoleon Hill, author of the book Think and Grow Rich, spent 20 years working with Dale Carnegie, studying the habits of successful people. He developed a table of desires, where it was required to daily visualize the goal and then feel it as if it were already realized. In a 1933 experiment conducted as part of the Carnegie program, participants who applied this technique achieved an average earnings increase of 25%, whereas the others showed only negligible changes. Steve Jobs, co-founder of Apple, in a 2005 interview at Stanford, shared how during his years of study at Reed College he practiced Zen meditation to clear his mind before making design decisions. He noted that it was precisely in the moments when he was fully immersed in a state of flow that the most revolutionary ideas, such as the Macintosh interface, arrived. Studies conducted at the University of California in 2005 confirmed that creative insights often arrive after 5 minutes of meditative breathing, when the heart rate frequency synchronizes with the alpha rhythms of the brain. Oprah Winfrey, the famous television host, openly shared that she uses the technique of holographic visualization in her daily practice. In her 2010 autobiography, she describes how she writes down her goals every evening and then closes her eyes and feels as if they are already realized. Over the course of 10 years, her income grew from $5 million to more than $2,000 million, and her charitable projects reached more than 100 million people worldwide. Scientific data obtained at the University of Texas in 2006 showed that people practicing this technique exhibit an increase in dopamine levels and a decrease in cortisol, which promotes better motivation and resilience to stress. These real-life stories confirm that the holographic model works not only under laboratory conditions, but also in the daily lives of people who have achieved outstanding results. They demonstrate how 3 key techniques, holographic visualization, heart-brain coherence, and network thinking, can become tools of transformation. Subscribers of this channel are the first to gain access to the next revealed secrets, from Talbot to the Forbidden Books series. And now, the most practical part, Technique 1, holographic visualization. Unlike traditional visualization, where an image is held in the mind as a static picture, here you allow yourself to fully feel the desired outcome, as if it already exists in the field of your internal hologram. To practice it, find a quiet place, close your eyes, and take 3 deep breaths. Then, while imagining the goal, focus not on its external details, but on the feeling it evokes: joy, confidence, ease. Allow this sensation to spread throughout your entire body, like light filling every cell. Perform this practice in 10-minute sessions every day, and the results will manifest in the form of new neural connections, the strengthening of epigenetic markers, and, as a consequence, more favorable events in your external reality. Technique 2, heart-brain coherence. Sit comfortably, place your hands on your heart, and begin breathing. 5 seconds of inhalation, 5 seconds of exhalation. With each inhalation, mentally fill the heart with light. With each exhalation, give it outward in the form of energy. After 5 minutes, you will feel how your heart rate frequency aligns with the alpha wave activity of the brain. Scientific studies by the HeartMath Institute confirm that such synchronization reduces cortisol levels by an average of 23%, increases the number of immune cells, and enhances implicit knowing, the ability to instantaneously find solutions without an analytical process. Technique 3, network thinking. When faced with a task, instead of asking yourself, "How do I solve this?" ask, "How does the universe hologram know the solution right now?" Open your consciousness to the implicate order, allowing the answer to come in the form of an image, a feeling, or a sudden flash of insight. In a 2009 Stanford experiment, students who applied this formulation solved problems 40% faster than those who used the conventional analytical approach. This occurs because the brain switches from a top-down mode, which requires logical chains, to a bottom-up mode, where information arrives from the deeper levels of consciousness, where the quantum reservoir of solutions is stored. These 3 techniques form a practical arsenal, allowing every person to transcend habitual limitations and begin consciously programming their reality. Scientific data backed by decades of research confirm that they work at the level of neural networks, genetic markers, and energy fields. Talbot's holographic model thus ceases to be merely a philosophical concept and transforms into an operating instruction for consciousness capable of changing lives. The most surprising part lies ahead. At the very moment when the holographic principle was first heard, it was as if a new layer of reality opened, in which the boundaries between thought and matter are erased. In modern culture, this idea is no longer perceived as exotic, but has become part of the arsenal of those who strive for the highest level of efficiency. If one looks at popular films, commercials, and even the design of user interfaces, it is revealed that they often employ the metaphor of the hologram, multi-layered interactive images in which each element is simultaneously distinct and a part of the whole. This is a reflection of how our brain perceives the world, a system built on the principle of nestedness, where individual neural groups synchronize into global patterns, and these in turn form broader structures of consciousness. It is precisely this level of organization that Michael Talbot described in his work, and modern practices demonstrate how it can be utilized in daily life. Psychological confirmations of this model are found in a wide variety of schools of thought. Carl Jung, in his treatises on the collective unconscious, spoke of archetypal images that fill the psyche like holographic patterns permeating every individual. His concept of individuation, the process of integrating these images into the conscious personality, directly echoes what Talbot calls the embedding of new holographic layers into the reality of the subject. When a person consciously embeds a desired image, they do not merely create a mental picture, but activate a whole spectrum of neural circuits that had previously participated in forming similar patterns. This is confirmed by studies of neuroplasticity conducted by Norman Doidge in 2007, showing that repetitive mental imagery is capable of forming new synapses at the same rate as physical practice. Abraham Maslow, in his hierarchy of needs, introduced the concept of peak experiences, states when a person feels complete harmony between themselves and the surrounding world. Modern data on the state of flow, researched by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, indicate that such experiences arise when cognitive loads and skills are in an optimal ratio. Holographic visualization, where the feeling of an already existing part of reality replaces pictorial representation, allows the brain to enter flow mode without the need for a lengthy warm-up through analytical planning. Athletes such as Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant often recounted that their best performances occurred at the moment when they felt the ball in their hand rather than simply imagining it. Jordan, in a 1998 interview, noted that before an important game he would close his eyes and feel every movement, every reaction of his body as if they were already occurring in real time. This is the practical embodiment of the holographic model. The feeling, rather than the image, becomes the driver of neural processes leading to real action. In the business environment, the holographic approach has found its application among the most famous leaders. Jeff Bezos, the founder of the largest online retailer, in his annual letters to shareholders, often emphasized the importance of seeing the future as already existing. He says that every strategic plan begins with the team living the desired outcome, feeling as if it has already been realized. Elon Musk, in his interviews, has repeatedly mentioned that when developing new rocket systems, he first feels their operation in his mind, and then translates this holographic projection into blueprints. Warren Buffett, though more conservative in his methods, mentions in his letters to partners that an intuitive feel for price often turns out to be more reliable than formal financial calculation. In each of these examples, we observe how holographic perception based on feeling rather than analytical construction accelerates the decision-making process and increases its accuracy. These examples confirm that the holographic model has already become part of the cultural code woven into the language of leaders, athletes, and creators. It works not as an abstract philosophy, but as a practical tool capable of changing neural networks, hormonal levels, and even epigenetic markers. When consciousness perceives the desired outcome as already existing, a cascade of biochemical reactions is triggered in the body, analogous to those caused by a placebo. As a result, dopamine production increases, cortisol levels decrease, and the immune system receives an additional stimulus to work. All of this is confirmed by numerous studies, from the work of James Lipton on epigenetics to the experiments on quantum entanglement conducted in 1982 by Albert Aspect, which demonstrate that particles can instantaneously react to one another regardless of distance. Similarly, in holographic consciousness, separate parts of reality instantaneously synchronize when their perception becomes uniform. If you have reached this part of the video, you are among the 5% of listeners who hold their attention longer than 45 minutes. This is a rare contingent. Click the subscribe button. The next episodes of this series reveal what cannot be read in textbooks. But like any powerful tool, the holographic principle can become a source of danger if applied without proper understanding. Naive positivism, when a person is convinced that the simple feeling of the desired outcome automatically materializes it, often leads to disappointment and the abandonment of real action. Such a magical mentality in which everything one wants must come true without effort feeds the culture of the law of attraction, which has turned into a commercial product rather than a scientifically grounded practice. As a result, people begin to ignore objective limitations, refuse planning and analysis, relying solely on the inner light. This leads to real problems remaining unresolved and the feeling of guilt intensifying when the desired outcome still fails to manifest. Toxic spirituality is another risk. When the holographic approach is mixed with religious dogmas, a tendency toward a reality-detached perception emerges, where any failures are explained by a lack of faith or unclean energies. In such cases, a person may withdraw into isolation, avoiding professional and social interaction, relying exclusively on internal visualization. History knows examples when such practices led to financial collapses and personal tragedies. In 1995, one of the centers of the New Evolution in California offered clients to program financial success through holographic meditations, promising instant enrichment. Most participants ultimately lost their invested funds and their psychological state deteriorated due to unfulfilled expectations. Finally, it is important to remember the necessity of integrating holographic techniques into a real context. No feeling can replace hard work, discipline, and critical thinking. The holographic approach is an accelerator, not a substitute. If it is used without combination with traditional methods, planning, learning, physical training, the result will be only a temporary sensation unsupported by a stable structure. The practice that allows the holographic model to be brought to life requires a systematic approach. Below are presented 7 techniques which, with regular application over 30 days, are capable of transforming perception and, as a consequence, reality. Each technique is described with specific steps, duration of practice, and expected timelines for the appearance of the effect. 1. The silence meditation holographic empty screen. Sit in a comfortable position, close your eyes and adjust your breathing. Inhale for 4 seconds, exhale for 6. On the first day, the goal is to hold your attention on the breath, not allowing thoughts to wander for more than 5 seconds. With each subsequent day, increase the time of silence to 20 minutes. On the 5th to 7th day, most practitioners begin to feel a light vibration in the area of the heart, which indicates the beginning of the synchronization of holographic layers. The effect of immersion into the empty screen usually manifests by the 15th day, when the mind ceases to perceive thoughts as separate objects and sees them as parts of a single hologram. 2. Holographic visualization. Feel as if it already is. Choose a specific desire, for example, raising your professional level. First, close your eyes, then, instead of drawing an image, focus on the feeling that will accompany the realization of the desire. Warmth in the chest, lightness in the shoulders, a confident voice. Perform this practice for 5 minutes in the morning, immediately after waking up, when the brain is in an alpha state. On the 3rd to 4th day, you will begin to notice that your brain memorizes these sensations, generating corresponding neural patterns. By the 20th day, the feeling will be so solid that when performing related actions, presentation, negotiations, you will automatically enter the required emotional state without additional effort. 3. Heart-brain coherence. Sit up straight, place your palms on your heart, and begin 5-5 breathing. Upon inhalation, mentally fill the heart with light. Upon exhalation, give it outward as a wave of energy. Do the exercise for 5 minutes twice a day, in the morning after meditation and in the evening before sleep. On the 7th to 9th day, measurements of the heart rate variability HRV index will show an increase of up to 20%, and the cortisol level in saliva will decrease by an average of 23%. These changes confirm that the brain and heart operate in a single holographic field, strengthening implicit knowing. 4. Network thinking. Question to the hologram. For any problem, ask yourself the question, How does the universe hologram know the solution right now? Write it down on a piece of paper, then close your eyes and allow mental images to appear without effort. The first answers may be abstract, a color, a sound, a sensation. After 3 to 4 days, the brain will begin to link these images with concrete actions, and you will receive insights in the form of specific steps. A 2009 Stanford experiment showed that such students solved problems on average 40% faster than those who used the traditional analytical approach. 5. Journaling the holographic path. Keep a diary where you record not only events but also the sensations associated with your goals. Every evening, write down 5 sentences about how you felt that the goal is already being realized. Do this for 10 minutes. On the 10th to 12th day, you will begin to notice that your internal dialogue becomes more coherent, and your subconscious mind begins to align external circumstances with the recorded feelings. 6. Gratitude practice holographic resonance. Every day, immediately after waking up, name 3 things for which you are grateful, but do not simply utter them. Imagine how they are already in your reality. Feel the lightness that arises in their presence. Do this for 5 minutes. In the 3rd to 4th week, studies conducted at the University of California in 2013 showed that such a practice increases oxytocin levels by 15% and strengthens the sense of social connectedness, which in the holographic model corresponds to the strengthening of light connections between individual patterns of consciousness. 7. Focus switching holographic transition. During the day, when you notice that you are stuck in mode 1, that is, in analytical, automatic thinking, take a pause, inhale, exhale 5-5, then switch to the feeling that I am part of a larger field. Focus on the sensation that you are but a single pixel in a vast hologram. Make such switches every 2 to 3 hours for 1 minute. By the 22nd day, you will begin to notice that stressful situations evoke fewer reactive emotions and the brain more quickly transitions to the bottom-up mode, where solutions come from the deeper levels of consciousness. These 7 practices form a comprehensive protocol which, when performed sequentially over 3 weeks, leads to the rewiring of neural connections, a change in hormonal balance, and the activation of epigenetic markers associated with increased adaptability. Studies by Doidge 2007 show that regular mental rehearsals are capable of increasing cortical thickness in areas responsible for motor and visual functions, while the works of Lipton 2013 confirm that altering thought patterns can influence the expression of genes associated with stress and immunity. Thus, the holographic approach becomes not merely a metaphor, but a real biophysical technology for changing reality. Synthesizing all that has been said, the main message of the episode can be expressed in a single poetic formula. Sit in the silence. The hologram is whole. You are a pattern looking at yourself. In the next episode, we will plunge into forbidden books, where we will dissect one of the most influential esoteric works, The Secret Teachings of Hermes. This pattern continues. Ring the bell. Click on the preview to the right. The next episode is already waiting for you, and remember, true reality begins where you decide to see it already today.